Hello, my world historians. This is Coach Bowman, and today we will begin Islam Part 2 Empires and Expansion. And please make sure you have your notes. Make sure it's the right one. Make sure it's Part 2 at the top, because here we go. So, as we left off, we talked about the geography and the key um, beliefs and things of traditions of Islam. Today, we're going to look at how Islam spread and what came of it. So, Muhammad, and after Muhammad died, a series of what's called caliphs. All right, caliphs are religious and political leaders. They're kind of like a governor over the Islamic State. There was no true like Muslim country for sort of say, but the territory um, was kind of ruled by this caliph, this political and religious leader. So when we talk about the first Muslim empire, we're going to talk about area that went from the Indus Valley to the Far East. It crossed North Africa, and that would be the southern border, if you will. It actually went into Europe and controlled Spain. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then as far north as Asia Minor. So think about when we talked about Alexander the Great and his empire. And if you kind of expand that across North Africa and then what today is Spain or Portugal, that's what the Muslims controlled. Now, there were two ways that the religion spreads. It spread through trade, as you can see the diagram there on the left, and through military conquest by force, which you can see there on the right. So, there's a lot of Muslim influence, and you see these with these photographs here taken by one of my former student teachers, not Miss King, but one of my former student teachers. She did a trip to Spain and was able to take a lot of photographs, and she shared these with me when I had her. So these are just different types of architecture in Spain, but it definitely shows the influence of Islam when they were there. So as you can see in this map, the orange color here is where um, Islam expanded when Muhammad was in charge of the faith, when he was the caliph. And these caliphs, mind you, are individuals that were related to Muhammad, sons, grandsons, nephews. So they had a blood relation to Muhammad, which made them important in the eyes of Muslims. So what's going to happen when we talked about trade? When we take, for example, when we go places, um, I've moved around a lot growing up, and my family traditions didn't change. Our location, our house did, maybe the type of clothing because of the different climates we were living in, but our traditions did not change. We still celebrated birthdays. We still celebrated Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving and things of that nature. Nothing truly changed, and we took those traditions with us. Likewise, when people travel on trade routes, they're going to take their religious traditions with them. And so that's what happens. You truly, religion is probably one of the easiest things to trade. I mean, as you can see by the second bullet here, it expanded over great distances, through deserts, over mountains. I mean, there was nothing truly that stopped it other than people can walk with it. I mean, you don't. It's not a huge amount of luggage, if you will, that you need to take religion with you. So again, it becomes very easy for Islam to spread after Muhammad dies, especially when it travels north into what was the Byzantine Empire. Um, the Persian Empire as well as the Byzantine Empire were weakening. People weren't trusting them. People weren't believing in them. And here is something new, this new faith of Islam that gave some people a sense of hope, a sense of justice, a sense of pride, if you will. And people are going to latch on to that very quickly in times of trouble and times of heartache. So you're going to have a big turnover and a very quick spread of Islam in a peaceful manner. All right? Again, people want something different. So they accepted Islam. So politically, it didn't last. The first empire didn't last very long. It only extended so far. Socially, uh, people were connected because of the language, because of the faith. So, um, I one of my extended family members is from Morocco, and his family's Muslim. So here you are in the northern country in Africa. You have Muslims in the Philippines and the South Pacific, and so they can relate to each other socially through this Arabic language that spreads with the religion. That becomes something else that I meant to mention in the last PowerPoint with the Quran. Traditionally, those that are very traditionally Islamic feel that the Quran should not be translated into any other language, that the Quran should only be in Arabic, and that if you are to convert into to Islam and become a Muslim, that you need to learn how to read Arabic. Others view that by translating the Quran into different languages, it helps spread Islam. So it's a very interesting concept. It's a very hot topic of debate in some nations. So it's a very, like I said, very interesting topic. Moving on. Slavery. Slavery was something still not based on race, but Muslims did believe in that. Again, the idea of debt slavery was a big one. If you were captured in battle or war and you were healthy enough to work, they would put you to work as a slave. So there's your economic concept there. So, what are some major key events of Islam? So, the death of Ali, the fourth caliph, guy named Ali, not Muhammad Ali. He's not a boxer, guys. Don't think that. It's somebody completely different. But what happens when Ali is technically murdered? I'm not getting into the details of that one, but there's a conspiracy there that he was murdered. Look into it. But the idea is that the question of leadership comes into play. So the who's going to lead us is a hot question, and so you have a huge split. Should it be another descendant of Muhammad, or should it be somebody else that kind of agrees that everybody agrees upon? So it's a huge topic that ends up splitting um, the Muslim faith into two different groups, or what's called sects, sects. And that is you have the Shia or Shiite Muslim, which are your more traditional views. They believe that a descendant of Muhammad should lead. Today, it's a very minor, it's the smaller of the two groups. Whereas the Sunni Muslim believes that it should be someone that everybody can agree upon, that looks from everybody's perspective, not just those traditional views like the Shiites. And today, the majority of the Muslims consider themselves to be a Sunni Muslim. One easy way for me to kind of differentiate the two, in the word Sunni, you see the word sun, and that's the biggest star in our solar system. So it's the biggest group of Muslims. So there's your little hint from me, your world history hack, put it that way. conquering of these two cities, Jerusalem and Damascus, were a huge event for Islam. For Jerusalem, again, it's what's going to lead to a series of holy wars called the Crusades, which we'll get into later on this semester. Um, Again, if you remember, Jerusalem, traditionally a Jewish town, city. Eventually, this is where Jesus is crucified, right outside the city of Jerusalem. And so then you have this huge influence of the Christian faith. And now you have this influence of Islam. So Jerusalem still today is a very hotbed. Um, it's kind of like the New York City of religions, put it that way, because if those of you that do have me in class, I have a poster of Jerusalem on the back wall. If you take a look at it, you will see where the Christians built their sacred structures, buildings, churches on top of fallen synagogues, which are Jewish holy places. And likewise, later on, Muslims will come in and build on top of those as well. So it's really a compact city that's divided amongst the three monotheistic religions. No wonder they had conflict and still do. Damascus will become, it's a huge city. It's a very wealthy city, good for trade, and it's in Syria. But it will become the new capital of the Muslim Empire at one point. So on this map, and I'm not quite sure the date of this map, but it's definitely in the 20th century. But it does go and show you the breakdown of um, of the different types of Sunni Muslims and the Shia Muslims. Um, to me, it's kind of fascinating. You kind of can see a majority. You have very little what I call hot colors, like the yellows, the oranges, the reds. Most of them are your cool colors. Your cool as in temperature, not cool as in like it's awesome. All right, but again, it's the blues and the greens. So another key event. Eventually, the capital gets moved from Damascus to Baghdad, and you read this in 8.2 reading. Baghdad is in Iraq. When I was a kid, it becomes a very important city due to the first Desert Storm or Desert Gulf War. Again, when I was in fifth grade, that was happening. It only lasted for 90 days, the shortest war ever. But again, if you think about Baghdad, here's another world history hack for you. The word Baghdad has a G in it. All right, that's going to signal the golden age. You see that? You see the hack there? All right, you got to keep that in mind. Baghdad, golden age. We talked about golden age before. Remember, golden age, it's when the civilization reaches high point, both politically, economically, socially, academically. And if you think about it, when you put a piece of gold out in the sun, it shines. So does a civilization in the golden age. Little side note, I think it was last year. I asked a comment. I was like, "Hey, what happens to gold when you put it out in the sun?" And the kid goes, "It melts." Not so much. It takes a lot more heat than that. But anyway, thought I'd make you laugh. But another major event, Battle of Tours. Very fascinating story here. So, as I said in our earlier in the presentation, how how Spain gets controlled by Muslims. Well, they expand further north into Europe to a city called Tours, which is in modern day France. France was at that time was ruled by a Christian king, all right, and he sent out his general, a guy named Charles Martel. And so, as the Muslims start to spread into Spain, Charles Martel comes in with his Christian forces and stops the Muslim expansion into Central Europe, basically. And so the Muslim forces back down, they retreat back into Spain and ruled Spain for about 500 years. So Muslims do have Spain, but again, it doesn't really go further than that. Eventually, this capital of Baghdad gets conquered by a group called the Mongols, led by a guy named Genghis Khan. And so, Mongols, we'll get into detail later. I truly wish that in this class we could get into more detail about the Mongols, but unfortunately, that's more of a World II thing. So, those of you that are moving on into World II, you'll have the privilege of learning about that from Mr. Poss. But when the Mongols do take over Baghdad, the Golden Age ends, and the empire, what they call the Muslim Empire, starts to dissolve in that sense. So you eventually have other empires that will come over and rule and spread Islam throughout. But again, there's a nice map there of Islam and kind of nice little dates there that helps kind of dictate the slow progression or progress of Islam. This is a famous painting that I use a lot. Charles Martel is on the horse. No, he's the only. There's a couple horses in there, but he's the center stage. You see him with his is a battle axe there, but he's known as the Warhammer, which is the tool that or weapon, I should say, that he used a lot. And again, the artist, I wish we were able to show you this in class and have me talk to you guys about and show you this in class, because I talk about how you can tell a lot about an artist from looking at a painting. In this case, when you're looking at this painting, you can definitely tell that he was a Christian, in the sense that you have the cross is obviously present there in the top left. How you have the Muslims portrayed as like very aggressive and mean, especially since there is a woman holding a child in the middle of the battlefield. Do you really think that was going to happen? I don't think so. So again, it's very interesting when you see and look, and I'm sure some of you guys are looking into and seeing other things too. Like, why is there another woman over on the right that kind of looks like the Virgin Mary? Again, is your Christian influence. So there's a lot of different things that you can get from just one painting. So. But anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you filled out your notes. I appreciate your time. And please make sure that you get your work in. It's getting to that point of the year, guys, that I hate for you guys not to be successful because not putting in work. So be safe. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.